What is Texas death row all about, and what is solitary confinement? Good evening, and welcome to HCCLA's Reasonable Doubt. My name's Carmen Rowe, and I'm the president of HCCLA, the largest local criminal defense bar in the country. And tonight we're going to give you an insider's view of Texas death row with our special guest, Anthony Graves. Anthony is a Texas death row exoneree who sat on death row and had 2 execution dates. He's going to tell our host his story tonight with Jimmy Ardwan and Damon Parrish.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to HCCLA's Reasonable Doubt. I'm your host, Jimmy Ardwan, along with my co-host, Damon Parrish. We're going to be with you for the next hour discussing criminal law topics in the Houston area and beyond. And as Carmen mentioned in our intro, we're going to have with us tonight Anthony Graves. You saw Mr. Graves' picture in our rolling credits. You'll be able to call in later in the show, and we'll also be taking questions via Twitter and our Facebook page, HCCLA Reasonable Doubt. Our Twitter handle is @HCCLA_TV. Again, please send those as you wish, and we will take your calls and answer your questions in the last half hour of the show. I want to introduce my co-host this evening, Damon Parrish. Damon, good evening. How are you?
All right, yourself? What's going on?
You know, same old, same old. Before we get to our guest this evening, Damon, I want to talk with you. There's a big case going on in the Houston area right now. The prosecution, the state of Texas versus Adrian Peterson, going on up in the 9th District Court in Montgomery County.
Right.
Yesterday was a big recusal hearing in that case. The prosecution was actually trying to get Judge Case thrown off.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see, and what's your opinion about that motion by the prosecutor?
Well, first, I would say it's the state of Texas versus Adrian Peterson, but really it's more like Britt Ligon, the DA in Montgomery County, versus Adrian Peterson and his own ego. Britt Ligon, who's the ADA, or excuse me, the DA in Montgomery County, and Judge Kelly Case do not like each other.
Explain, do they have a history?
It's not so much a history. Judge Case, in my opinion, is one of the fairer judges in Montgomery or Harris County. Brett, he is what he is. And so they just butt heads. They butt heads a lot on different issues. If Judge Case doesn't rule Brett's way, he gets upset, and they butt heads. At some point in time, during the pendency of this action, Judge Case commented to the media that both Britt Ligon, the DA in Montgomery County, and Rusty Harden, Mr. Peterson's defense attorney, were media whores. And based off that little statement, they tried to recuse him. And it should be noted that Rusty Harden did not join Britt Ligon in his recusal motion and actually didn't care.
Pretty unusual to see the state asking for a judge to be recused.
You know, in the entirety of my practice, I've never seen it happen before. So I don't know what the logistics was behind that or what they hoped to accomplish, but I mean, it's farcical in what's going on in Montgomery County.
And we've got a trial date coming up, I think, early December, correct?
It's early December, but you know, I don't expect it to go that soon. That's literally a month from now. I don't know if both sides had a chance to prepare or get the discovery that's required now, so I don't know. My guess is it'll come that day, it'll get reset to sometime in February and probably go around then, February, March.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on it. It's certainly a fascinating case, and we'll keep you guys informed of what all goes on in that action. Our guest tonight spent 18 years in prison. 12 of those years he was on death row for a crime he did not commit. Anthony Graves, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Talk, Anthony, a little bit with the audience and tell us what exactly happened in your case.
I mean, you know, where do we begin?
Let's start at the very beginning. You were charged with murder.
I was charged with murder of, it was in a small town, Somerville, Texas. 6 people were murdered. 4 were children under the age of 10, a teenage daughter, and a grandmother. They were shot, stabbed, bludgeoned, gasoline poured over their bodies, house burned down, I guess in an attempt to cover up the crime.
And the crime occurred in 1992?
The crime occurred in 1992.
How old were you then?
I was 26. I was 26. I lived in the adjacent town, Brenham, Texas. And when this crime had happened, you know, nothing like this had ever happened in that county before. So, you know, they were scared, they were angry, and they wanted justice. And as a matter of fact, the mayor, who came out in the papers the next day and said that whoever had done that crime, that they didn't even deserve a trial. They should just be hanged, right? And so that's the way they pursued the case.
And the prosecutor in that case was Charles Sebesta. He's since been disbarred after a grievance that you filed against him, I believe, correct?
Well, he hasn't been disbarred yet.
Okay.
But we're
It's in
working
the
on
process of
it.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Sebesta charged you and another man with the crime, correct?
Yes, Mr. Sylvester took it up on himself to falsely charge me with capital murder, as well as another young man.
And eventually, I think it was proven both at the appellate court level in the Fifth Circuit, and then upon the ordered retrial at state court, that co-defendant of yours lied, and it was based upon his lie that you were convicted, correct?
Yeah, well, but you know, if you know anything about the Fifth Circuit Court,
Yes.
when they rule in the defendant favor, trust me, it's overwhelming.
It's very rare.
Yes, so in the Fifth Circuit rule, egregious prosecutorial misconduct, that's something you don't really get out of the court, but they knew that what Mr. Sylvester did to me was basically criminal.
I'd actually say that it wasn't basically criminal. It was actually criminal.
Well, yeah, it was
I
criminal.
mean, that to me is criminal. And my question for you is, besides what I'm going to say is the obvious, what do you think made him signal you out as the only person for this crime? Between two different counties, two different cities, he came knocking on your door. And I have an idea of what the reason is, but what do you think?
Well, let's stick with the facts on this here one. Is that a young man lied on me, right? And instead of them checking out his story to see if he was telling the truth or not, they just came to my house, arrested me, and charged me with capital murder. Okay, and then what they discovered is this is a young black man with no resources. Okay, do I need to go any further?
No. All right.
You know, I ended up losing 18 and a half years of my life because I was that young black man who had been lied on but had no resources.
And you were convicted with no scientific evidence?
I was convicted with nothing.
Just eyewitness and
Just
one fraudulent testimony?
Wasn't no eyewitness. It's just this guy lied.
Just one lie.
Just one lie.
One lie.
That's it. No eyewitness, none of that kind of stuff. It's just a guy lied, admitted that he lied. They went and threatened his wife for prosecution if he didn't continue the lie. He said he felt like he was between a rock and a hard place. He didn't know this man was innocent, but he'd been in jail 2.5 years. And now they're saying that if he didn't testify, they was going to go after his wife. So he said that, look, I did the lesser of the two evils. I knew that Mr. Gray's children had their mother, but if I didn't lie, then my son wouldn't have a mother or father.
Right.
So I did the lesser two evils and I lied on Mr. Graves. It's as simple as that. It can happen to anyone.
And the entire time you were shouting your innocence, proclaiming it to no
Yes,
avail.
I had alibi witnesses.
And in fact, didn't Mr. Carter recant?
The
right
very
before the
night.
trial? Yeah.
No, the very night, the first night. Then all throughout the years, then on his gurney, his dying declaration, he could have been saying anything. And he wanted the family to know that this man had nothing to do with murdering your family.
And
Those were his
Sebesta
dying
just-
declarations.
And Mr. Sebesta just ignored that.
Well, Mr. Sylvester did everything with intent, so
Sure.
why would he come back and say
Absolutely.
it was a mistake? You know, he did it with intent. He intended to murder me. That's as simple as that.
And your case was reversed in 2006 by the Fifth Circuit. As we said, you were brought back to Burleson County, where you were held in solitary confinement for 4 years awaiting your exoneration.
Well, I was actually held in solitary confinement at 16 and
Yeah.
out of the 18 that I was incarcerated. But when I went back to Burleson County, they held me 4 years and 3 more months in solitary confinement, where they told any inmate that was in the jail that they couldn't talk to me, they couldn't look at me, they couldn't socialize with me whatsoever. I was just on an island in a jail because they knew they had been caught. And so what they were trying to do was break my will, because they continued to come and try to get me to plea bargain. And I kept telling them, you're going to kill me or you're going to free me. I'm not going to compromise the truth. And so therefore I stayed 4 years and 3 more months. And I went through almost 8 prosecutors and 10 defense attorneys until they got Miss Siegler on the case.
And she's Kelly Siegler.
Kelly Siegler.
For those who aren't familiar, Kelly Siegler was a former Harris County prosecutor.
She's on cold justice
And
now.
she is on cold justice now, and has quite a reputation for obtaining convictions on behalf of the state. And she's the one who dismissed this case against you, isn't she?
Yes, you know, it's just so funny, the story is, because when they told me that they had hired Miss Siegler on the case, you know, I just felt like, okay, you know, because she come with quite a reputation. She had put 19 men on death row. But I told them, you know, hey, look, she don't change the truth. I'm innocent, and that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter who they put on the case. And so while I'm saying all this, lo and behold, it's the first time that I get a blessing because Kelly actually want to come and see what happened. And she wants to make sure that if this man is guilty, that she can actually get him executed. But she found out that, hey, there is absolutely no evidence here. And then she went to that and said, oh my God, this man is innocent.
And actually, I want to rewind it back for a second. You mentioned while you were in Burleson County for the 4 years, they came to you with plea bargains, correct?
Yes.
And they were pretty much saying, we'll let you go, we'll let you out if you just confess to doing this?
Something like that.
Something like that?
Yes.
And
no, I wasn't going to do that.
Which is pretty typical of this type of situation.
Well, it's the reason why our system is broken. We've come to a plea bargain system here. You know, no system of justice anymore. It's about the best deal. You frighten up the defendant, and then you say, I'll give you this deal, or I'm going to hang you. Right. And he don't have no resources.
And touching on that, Anthony, I don't think most people, especially our viewers at home, most of them understand what solitary confinement is like.
Yeah.
What is that? Tell our audience, what is that like? I mean, personally,
wow.
I can't even imagine what it's like.
Well, you know, for your audience, is what I would tell them to really get an experience. You just go, take out all your clothes in your closet, and you go in your little closet and you lock the door, and you don't come out for 24 hours. And you see if you can do that. I had to do that for 6,640 days, okay, every day. 23, 24 hours a day, I was in this little 8x10 cage, literally listening to and watching men just go out of their minds. Guys dropping their appeals because they couldn't take the conditions no more. Guys hanging themselves, attempting to hang themselves. Guys cutting their throats, slitting their wrists. They're doing all of this here because of the conditions. Solitary confinement, the only thing it does is break your will to live.
How close do you think you came to having your will broken with all the plea agreements and everything else that were brought to you and all the chatter that was going on? So how did it affect you, and how close did you come to taking a plea?
It's like, well, I never came close to taking no plea. I like to say I'm the exception, not the rule, because I was just so naive to believe that it would all work out. Because when you go through school, you learn that your system here is the best system in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So I just was naive to believe that justice would prevail. I didn't know when it would, but I couldn't afford to believe otherwise, because I think that, like most guys, if they believe that they'll never get out, that's that the minute you stop living, you become a dead man walking. I couldn't afford not to believe that the system wouldn't work because I was innocent. And if I was an innocent man sitting there thinking that the system wasn't going to work, I mean, come on, I wouldn't have been in my right state of mind coming out of here.
Yeah.
So, so we fast forward now to about 2004, correct? That's when your conviction gets overturned? 2006, I'm sorry. And what happened there? What led to your conviction being overturned? What happened to the process that got the ball rolling and your attorney, and what got that started?
Well, as you already know, appeal process is a long, drawn-out process, right? But at the same time, I had gotten a young lady, a lady named Nicole Caceres, who was a professor at St. Thomas University that was working with the Innocent Project, the Innocent Network here. And her students started looking into my case. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, they found this case was very disturbing. So they just really wanted to find out the truth. And so they started investigating, and it led them to believing that this man is actually innocent. And so for 8 years, man, they stuck with me. They went out and start for the first time investigating this case, which nobody had ever done. And what happened, they found all this other evidence that never came forward. People that heard things or knew things that wasn't true in the case. What Sylvester and them presented against me was never talked to. Sylvester and them used their names, but without bringing them to court, saying that they said things, nobody ever challenged it, because I didn't really have no good attorneys at the time. They just believed in me. So
the best investigation you received came from a law professor and law students.
Yes, at the time. But, to digress, I would say what started it all was when Geraldo Rivera came down and interviewed me in 2002 on my case. And then he went and interviewed Sylvester. Now, see, Sylvester, one thing about a lie is you better remember it.
You can't maintain a lie.
Okay? Because if you don't, it'll change on you. Yeah. And so one thing about when he went and talked to Sylvester and them, he forgot about all the lies they told 10 years ago. So when he asked Sylvester, well, did Mr. Carter ever say that Graves was innocent? Sylvester forgot that he had all that. And he said, oh, yeah, he told me that Mr. Graves was innocent. He said, well, how did you continue to prosecute Mr. Graves? He said, oh, well, it was my gut feeling that Mr. Graves had something to do with it. So we convict people on gut feelings now and not evidence. So that's kind of like how I got the ball rolling,
We're talking to Anthony Graves tonight. He was on death row for 12 years, was exonerated in 2010, spent 18 years in prison. Again, reminder, please send in your questions at HCCLA_TV on Twitter. You can also join us on Facebook, HCCLA Reasonable Doubt, and in about 15 minutes we'll be taking your calls. We'll be putting up a phone number for you to call in about 15 minutes or so. Anthony, I want to go back to your time on death row. You spent 12 years there. Kind of take us through what that experience, and I hate to call it an experience, but what it was like for you.
Are you sure you want me to go there? Because you're going to need a therapy session if you really understand what I'm saying, because what I witnessed was a lot of inhumanity. I witnessed men being in little cages like animals. The same thing you see on a documentary where someone is abusing dogs. That's what you see down there on death row. As I say, I watched little young men come there at the age of 18, 19 years old, and 2 years later, they didn't even know their name, speaking incoherently. Paranoid schizophrenia, standing up all night, kicking and screaming, thinking they hear voices and all that. So that's what's happening on death row. As I said, death row is designed to do one thing: is just kill you from the inside out. That's it.
Did you have any contact with the outside world while you're on death row?
Well, you can write letters. You can write letters to people who will write to you. Family can come visit you once a week for 2 hours, but there's no human contact. You have to speak through a plexiglass window on a receiver. You actually, that's your outside contact. What I used to do to leave the place is I just read a lot of books. I escaped between the pages of a book.
Were people able to send you books?
You can send books through like Barnes and Nobles or something like that, but you can't just from you to me send a book. But that's kind of what a lot of guys do. They kind of immerse themselves in books to kind of escape their place.
And I'm assuming on death row you don't get any kind of recreational time.
You get 1 hour out of your cell and just to a bigger cage. And what you see when you see someone out there in that rec area is you'll think they're a wounded animal, because it's just like 60 square feet, and all he does is just continue to walk around in a circle. That's how he gets his exercise. And it's for an hour, then you come in, and that's it.
Now, is this 1 hour a day or
1 hour a day? 1 hour a day, and for 5 days a week, and then on the weekend you just locked up 24 hours. Now, people don't understand. You have no television, you have no telephone. You're just in here and behind 4 walls, and waiting to be executed. And it just literally drives men out of their minds. You see walls just closing in on guys. These guys just, you hear a grown man screaming and crying in the middle of the night. Okay, something wrong with that. And I used to hear it all the time. Just losing their mind, guys trying to take their own lives. Something wrong with that. Something wrong with our system. We're not doing no kind of rehabilitating.
And what was, speaking of rehabilitation, you're released in 2010. You've been on death row for 12 years.
Yes.
Solitary confinement a little over another 4, so a total of 16 and a half years.
No, 18 and a half.
But 16 and a half or so in solitary.
Yes.
You get out in 2010. How do you readjust?
Wow, there's no recipe. There's no.
What have you done?
There's no rules.
Yeah.
As I say, I go back to saying that I'm the exception, not the rule. Don't look at me and say this is how it is, because naivete saved my life. As I said, I was just so naive to believe that it'll work out. So when I came out, being that I've always believed that I was coming home, it wasn't such a hard adjustment for me, because I had a lot of support from around the world. Okay, I just had from pretty much every country you can think of that was supporting me. So when I came home to fanfare. I came home to a lot of support. you know, a lot of those guys don't have that. A lot of those guys are not innocent.
Yeah.
You know.
And being the exception, not the rule, you've actually also, you started a charity. You started a foundation, correct?
Yes.
And it's the Anthony Graves Foundation, am I correct?
Yes, here in Houston.
And that foundation is geared towards children and helping children. So
Yeah, you know, I've created a mentorship program geared toward basically keeping children out of the prison pipeline. And a lot of people ask me, well, why you working with children when this happened to you in like the criminal justice system? And I say to myself because I say to others because when I was there and I was talking to guys, I realized that their crime started at the ages of the early ages. So I said, well, you know, if we can stop these kids from the prison pipeline at the early ages, we don't have to hear these stories later on. Because most of those guys were eating out of trash cans, man, when they was 8 and 9 years old. And then they ended up putting a gun in their hand and going robbing somebody to take care of themselves and their siblings because their parents wasn't there. So I said, then what we have to do is get out and go after the kids. You got to go after them while they're younger. You got to put some guidance in their life. You got to put something positive in their life. You got to give them somebody that they can trust, that they can go into and just bare their souls and tell whatever it is that's bothering them. A lot of people don't understand. Kids deal with emotional things that they can never really talk about, such as death, you know, abandonment, all of that. And we don't address those issues. So those same kids end up on death row.
So, in your program, the way I understand it, if I'm wrong, please correct me, it kind of focuses on helping the mind, body, and soul of a child. So you have like
definitely.
The technology part, which kind of helps with the mind and helping them use technology to learn, and then you actually feed them. You provide food for their body.
We're going to be providing them because I just also figured that most of those guys' stories were when they was out there robbing, when they was out there trying to sell dope, is because in the evenings when they came home from school, nothing was there to be eaten.
Right.
Family, parents wasn't there. So they ended up robbing for their siblings and things. So we want to feed them in the evening so that they don't have to go home hungry. So if they got something in their stomach, they don't feel the need to go out there and take something from someone else. So it's just kind of like, you know.
For those in our audience who are interested, you can find information about Anthony's foundation at www.anthonygravesfoundation.org. Anthony, I want to get your opinion on our criminal justice system as a whole. I mean, you were convicted by one witness, right?
There wasn't no witness.
One witness who lied.
The guy who lied.
Right. And, you know, I want to get your opinion. One of the tweets coming at us right now is asking about your thoughts on the one witness rule, and can one witness or should one witness be allowed to convict someone and send them to death row?
Well, no, it shouldn't be allowed, but that's not even the rule because there has to be corroborating evidence. So you would say, well, where did they get the corroborating evidence from it if the man was innocent? You know, they took a whole piece of cloth and manufactured a case out of it, you know, and they used that man with their threats and everything to help them, you know, get the verdict that they wanted.
And Jimmy, I think before we continue with that question, just to kind of explain what the one witness rule is, in Texas, you can be convicted off the testimony of one witness alone. And as Mr. Graves said, with or without corroboration, if a jury believes beyond a reasonable doubt, one witness and that witness's statements, you can be convicted of a crime. And I'm sure you, as Mr. Graves' story can tell, and other stories on death row, plenty of men have been exonerated off death row based off the false or misleading testimony of just one witness, with no corroboration from a second party or scientific evidence. However, the state of law in Texas is one witness is all it needs to convict. And just want to kind of explain that so that we get some context to Mr. Graves' answer about how the one witness rule works.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be like that. Look, let me just say this. I don't think one man should be able to determine whether a man lives or dies. I think that, you know, there should be other safeguards in place, basically to keep someone from their own biases, such as prosecutors, because we all have our own biases at some point. And I just think that if you got a 3-judge panel in place to where any city, any county that wants to seek the death penalty has to go and get the 3-0 approval from that panel who looks at the evidence that you're bringing forward and determine whether that is a death penalty qualified case, if you're going to have the death penalty. One man shouldn't determine whether or not someone lives or die, whether this person, they go seek the death penalty against him or not, because if you look at the history of it, something's wrong, okay? Something is wrong. You break down the numbers, and something is wrong. So when we know that, we say, well, what kind of safeguard can we put in place if we're talking about the death penalty? And that is that man has to go to a panel, just like in federal. He has to go to a panel and he has to present the evidence, and that panel has to make a 3-0 vote to determine whether or not this is a death qualified case. I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off of one man who has a political agenda.
How much have you shared your story with the legislature, members of our state legislature, in an attempt to try and get them to change any of the laws which have affected you, anything within the system that's affected you in this case?
I talk to them all the time. I have some of them on my Rolodex, some of them on my cell phone, and we talk a lot. But you have to understand, a lot of politicians would say something totally different off a record, okay, than they would on camera. They're politicians. But, you know, I do make known that I'm here to be part of the solution, not the problem, because what I witnessed, no one else will ever have to witness, okay? I witnessed a lot of inhumanity, a lot of injustice. A lot of people just don't care about what's happening to our system. And our system, I'm telling you, is failing us from top to bottom. Even though we have a good system, it needs an overhaul. That's it. I always say that, you know, when we first rolled out the Model T, it's the best car in the world. But look at the cars we drive today. They're more safer. They've upgraded. Why can't we do that with our system? Things have changed. We've evolved as people. We need a system to catch up with us. We don't have that right now. We have the same system that back in the day when Dred Scott was fighting for his property, they told him he didn't have any rights.
When he was 3/5.
Okay. He was 3/5 of a man. And that's the same system
Are you
in place today.
Are you surprised, Anthony, that even after cases like yours, like Michael Morton's, after all the stuff that has gone on, that we still have cases today of prosecutors who either don't turn over exculpatory material or perpetrate fraud, suborn perjury in a case? Do you still, can you even grasp that? What are your thoughts
It's
on
the
that?
culture. It's just the culture. Even someone wanting to come in doing good can't just go in and do it by himself. He has to change the culture. It is the culture, man, where there is a line drawn in the sand in this thing. It is us against them. Everybody want to win. Nobody's seeking justice anymore. It's the culture. And until we change the culture, until people actually start showing up at the ballot box and saying that we're tired of this, then the culture is going to continue. I blame it on the people. I blame it on us, because we are the gatekeepers. We are the real gatekeepers. If those that we put in there and entrust to do the right thing, serve and protect us, is not doing it, we go vote them out. We are the gatekeepers. And if we're not doing that, then this is what happens.
So speaking of voting, have you voted yet?
Yes, first day.
So have I.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, you were also instrumental in the Defense Discovery Bill, the bill that has offered discovery or kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about how was your experiences with speaking with Senator Durbin and trying to push that bill through to where maybe we can avoid some of the pitfalls and just gross injustices that have existed in your case and others?
Well, you know, I like to say, though, the bill is actually named after a exoneree named Michael Morton.
Correct.
Michael Morton came out, and I think a year after me, and he had some misconduct in his case, and they decided that it deserved to be a bill named after him. So this bill is a mirror image of a bill that was already in place called the Brady. Okay, so let's not get it twisted. The bill is just a mirror image of Brady. Okay, it is only to say that we passed another bill like Brady. It's supposed to strengthen Brady a little bit, but it's just a mirror image of Brady. So I don't get caught up in we passed another bill just to pass another bill and call it a Michael Morton Act, an Exoneree Act, when in actuality it does no more than what Brady's already doing.
Okay.
I want to remind everybody we're with Anthony Graves again tonight, speaking about his experience on death row, his exoneration, his time in solitary confinement. We're going to take some phone calls now. The number to call in is 713-807-1794, 713-807-1794. You can also send us your questions on Twitter at HCCLA_TV, at HCCLA_TV. You can also join us on our Facebook page, HCCLA Reasonable Doubt, and post questions on there and inquiries any time of the week, and we'll be happy to answer those as well. Anthony, while we're waiting to get some questions from our audience, I want to talk about some of the positive things that have been going on in your life since your exoneration. You don't just have the foundation, you also have a play that you're doing.
Yes, you know, I'm doing a one-man stage narrative. Starts in November 21st in Atlanta at the Epic Center, 8 to 11. What I decided to do is take my story and put it in as many faces as I can. I think that it's important, after all I've gone through, to get up on a stand and to share with everyone else about what's going on in our criminal justice system. So we've created this one-man stage narrative where we have props on the stage. We'll have the gurney. We'll have the solitary confinement cell, and then I'll just narrate my story. And you know, and it's educational. I'm not out to beat the system up. I'm out to educate people about the system so we can make it better. You know?
And now you said your show is going to start in Atlanta, but it will come to Houston. That's correct.
My show is starting in Atlanta, but the plan is to crisscross the nation with it, and as well as going overseas. You know, everyone needs to hear this story. It's an incredible story. It's one that'll make you laugh, make you cry, make you think, but most importantly, it'll make you want to get involved, and that's what we all need to be doing now, especially in today's time. We all need to be involved.
And this is actually being produced by your own production company. Like
Yeah,
you're in
Anthony
charge
Bleed's
of it all.
production. Yeah, Anthony Bleed production. I started it in Atlanta for tax purposes only. I mean, but
Sure, you got the advice of a lawyer on that.
yes. So I've started in Atlanta, and we're just going to crisscross the globe.
Good.
When
Yeah.
for our viewers here, when are you coming to Houston?
Well, you know, so many people have asked me that. I'm just going to wait on Houston to you know, ask me themselves. You know, when someone wants to get me here, then we'll load up the truck and we'll get down here. So.
Well, I hope you get here soon.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm waiting on someone like a mayor, or a senator, or a corporate sponsor to get me down here.
All right.
Are you doing anything else interesting besides the play? Anything fun, exciting?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm doing a documentary also about my life today. You know, we're just kind of catching up with me as to how I've progressed from 4 years. Yeah, and I speak all over. Do I do anything fun? Yeah, I call this fun because I'm educating people, and you know, and I'm having an impact, a positive impact. So that's fun to me.
Mr. Graves, you know, I don't want to have a complete spoiler for your documentary, but kind of give us a little bit of what we can expect in that. What are you doing differently? What is fun? Just give us a nugget of what we can expect to see in your documentary.
Well, what you can expect to see in my documentary is my journey from coming out here to crisscrossing the globe, trying to educate people with this story. Yeah, and you can see it's going to be a lot of interviews with people who had something to do with where I'm at today, from prosecutors to judges to just laymen, just everybody's having a comment about the life that I'm living out here today, because I kind of just, you know, I live it in the public eye, you know, because I want people to know. So I live it in the public eye, and you'll see that in my documentary.
We got our first call this evening. I'd like to get on the phone and take our first caller. Hello?
Hi, that's a quick question.
Sure.
I'm wondering, Mr. Graves, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you,
My question is, what do you think about the number of exonerations that are coming out in Texas, and what are your thoughts on what's contributing to that? And just kind of for the panel there, what are y'all's thoughts on the number of exonerations that specifically on death row that are coming out?
Well, I like to say it really just highlights the problem that we have in our criminal justice system. And you got to understand, most of those guys that are coming out today, they've been in there 25, 30 plus years. Okay, so this was happening way back in the day. And so I just think it's basically bringing to light the problems that we have in our criminal justice system, our approach, the culture that's there. And I think if we learn from all these exonerations, we can make the system better. But definitely definitely these things were happening way before today.
Do you think we'll ever be able to eliminate that culture, Anthony?
Yeah, I do. I'm very optimistic about it because when I travel and speak at many law schools and talk to many law students, they really want to make the system better, you know. And I think, and I always tell them, you know, basically, if you want to make the system better, you don't have to always be a defensive lawyer to make it better. Go be a prosecutor. We need good prosecutors.
Well, and I think we'll all agree at this table that it's not the prosecution's job to seek convictions. It's the prosecutor's job to seek justice.
Seek justice, and we've gotten away from that because we've replaced it with politics. And in order for things to change, really, you got to take the politics out of it. We got to stop this electing prosecutors on the local level, you know. And you select them. You select them for 10 years, and after 10 years, they got to go. They have no political pressure. They go after 10 years. Whatever they become a judge on a panel of whatever, but you know, after 10 years, that's it. Because other than that, you become corrupted by this illusion of power. And as we all know, in our history, they say power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what our problem is now. We have allowed prosecutors so much authority, so much power that it's corrupted the office, and that's the culture you have. You got to change it at the ballot box first, I think.
Do a caller?
I wanted to, again, remind everybody to call in 713-807-1794 and send us your tweets. We will take your calls and answer your questions that you tweet us. Anthony, I'm just, frankly, personally, I'm amazed at your optimism, given all that you went through. I think Damon would agree. The problem with a lot of us as defense lawyers is we kind of get jaded by the system.
Right.
We get jaded day in and day out from what we do, and it makes us kind of cynical to the whole process. And what I'm both astonished and amazed at with you is just the glass is always half full. I mean, that seems what got you through your time on death row. It's what got you through that solitary confinement. And as we sit here today and talk, I mean, I'm not looking at a bitter man. I'm looking at somebody who is full of life.
Man, well, here's the thing, you know, and I think people forget this throughout the process of life, is that no matter what you go or what happens in your life, that's not what shapes your life.
Right.
It's how you respond to it that shapes your life. This is just how I respond. This is my choice. I can choose to be bitter and angry, and everybody would say he has the right. But I choose to live. I choose to be happy. I don't want to give that situation no more energy than it is already taken from me. You know, so being bitter is not going to help me achieve what I'm trying to achieve, which is to make the system better for us all. So, you know, hey, look, I just choose to live a good life, man, and I'm happy that I understand my choices.
You know, Jimmy, I want to piggyback on what our caller's last question was, and I'm going to ask it to you, Mr. Graves. So we are more and more astonished at the number of exonerations that are coming out. And it's alarming how many people, like you, Mr. Graves, were sitting on death row, and through one witness, they are found to be exonerated. In your case in particular, it took, just like, as you said, very egregious acts for you to get your exoneration. So in light of all that, my question to you is, in your opinion, how many other people are sitting in death row or sitting in prison and unfortunately don't have the egregious acts or what is the evidence necessary to actually get them exonerated?
Well, let me just say this, that they did a recent scientific study that says that at least 4% of the men that are sentenced to death row are wrongfully convicted, okay? Now, at my opinion as to how many are actually down there throughout the system, I always tell people that I don't want to give a number because I'm afraid I'm going to leave somebody out, okay? It's that big. We have a big problem, bigger than we won't even realize it. Because if we was to, I think, go down there and get all the guys out there who were innocent, we would have a lot of room in our prison system. Our prison system is a booming business empire, and we are making money on the backs of the poor and unfortunate, and they're not all guilty. I can tell you that. I was down there with a lot of men who had little to nothing in their cases, and they were being executed. I mean, literally executed and going to their death crying that they're innocent. But you'll never know those names because those cases will never come up again. But I can promise you, we put a lot of people in the ground that were innocent, more than we care to realize.
We have another call coming in. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. You're on the air with us.
Yes, I have a question for Anthony. I'm just curious, since you've been through this, if you had one piece of advice to give someone in your shoes, what would it be?
Never give up. Never give up. That's what my one and only advice would be to them. There are going to be some good days, there are going to be some bad days. But if you stay true to what you believe in, you can come through any of those days. So never give up.
There's a tweet that came in asking how many death row inmates have been exonerated in Texas. What's the exact number?
12. I'm the 12th. In Texas, it's 146 nationwide. And Texas is 12.
And so you were the most recent. Was your conviction the most recent in time? In other words, was there a conviction that predated, that was after yours, but they got out sooner than you?
I want to say yes. A guy named Michael Tony.
Okay.
And he got out before me, and was killed a month later in a one-car accident. Did not come out and take his time, tried to come back out and fit back into society, not understanding how much has changed, and a month later he killed himself in a one-car accident.
We have another call. Let's get to the phones again. Hello, caller.
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I wanted to ask the gentleman that's...
If you could turn your TV down, ma'am, it will help us.
All
hear
right,
you.
babe. I'm glad you told me. Hold on a minute. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, what I wanted to ask him that, I believe in God. God is what I have on my mind each day and every night. He never let us fail. But what I want to ask, why was he on death row?
Well, I was on death row because a man decided that he had the power of God and that he wanted to use it to put an innocent man on death row for a crime he didn't commit. They knew about it. They withheld the evidence. They hid the evidence. They coerced testimony. They threatened alibi witnesses. Did everything and anything they could to convict the innocent man. So that's why I was on death row.
And to kind of further the caller's question, in Texas, you can be put on death row for various different offenses, one of which would be killing multiple people, killing a witness, felony murder, which is the most common, and, of course, killing a police officer. So for a legal answer to your question, with Mr. Graves being accused of killing multiple people, that would be a legal justification for death row.
Anthony, I want to kind of get back to your adjustment back into society afterwards. Have you gone through counseling, and if so, how much, and what kind of?
I tried counseling one time, and she was crying more than me. Okay, so I knew this wasn't gonna work. So what I do though, I honestly, I use my stage as my therapy session.
Okay.
When I am talking to people, I am actually in therapy.
Wow.
I get to
It's like a
vent.
release.
I get to tell you everything that happened. So that's my therapy session, because I tried the one-on-one, and I tell you, I was handing her tissue. Okay, so it was like, this is not gonna work. So.
Listen, we have another call coming in. Let's take another call here. Caller, hello.
Hi, yes. I was interested in knowing what happened to the individuals who lied, who withheld information, and who intentionally put Mr. Graves in this situation.
The prosecutor.
Are you talking about the prosecutor or the co-defendant who he was charged with, who actually?
Both.
Oh,
Sure.
Well, the co-defendant has been executed. The prosecutor right now, I have a grievance pending to have him disbarred, which I'm hoping at the beginning of next year that process will be completed. But yeah, he's has an answer to his actions right now as we speak. and he wanted to do it privately. You know, attorneys, when they're coming up for disbarment, they can either elect to have a public hearing or done in private. So this man who belittled me and kind of scandalized my name publicly, when the shoe now is on the other foot, has asked that they reprimand him privately.
Wow.
Yes.
And do you have a hearing set in that, Anthony?
Well, they don't have a hearing set as of now, but they have 6 months to complete it. And I think January or February will be the 6 months. So I'm anticipating something happening around that time.
Okay. Do you think it'll be just a panel decision? Will there be an actual hearing? What's your lawyer?
Well, he's asked that it be private. Okay. So whatever it is, the public won't know, because you can't come in.
Well, let me ask you about that. I mean, do you?
Yeah, it's coward.
I mean, it does seem kind of.
Well,
for a little lack of a better term that we can't say.
You know, I think it just further illustrates his guilt, and that he already knew what he was doing to me, and now that he is going to be called out publicly about it, he said, no. You know, I'm the system. Do me privately. You know, even though I humiliate this man and his family publicly, you know, cut me some slack. I was a prosecutor. Do me privately, and they said okay. So I think that's something that needs to be changed. Because this is we the people's system, okay? And we have a right to know what happened.
And to be clear, that's a state bar proceeding.
That's a state bar proceeding.
The state bar is the one who's decided that
yes.
that
yes.
proceeding will be
And most
private.
of them are former prosecutors.
And he's not facing any criminal liability?
Not as of yet. But I promise you, I'm not stopping till, you know, I pursued every avenue for justice.
Because he sponsored perjury. Let's be honest here.
Yes, of course. Of course he sponsored perjury. And he just really tried to murder me. He had every right to believe in my innocence. The man told him. Okay? He hid that.
Trying to see here if we had, nope, didn't refresh. I thought we had another one, but sorry. What I'm really struggling with is Mr. Sebesta really hasn't had to answer for anything up to this point. I mean, here he's suborned perjury.
Yes.
He's got a wrongful conviction against a man who didn't do anything wrong.
Threatened alibi witnesses.
He threatened witnesses. I mean,
coerced false testimony.
He's broken every rule imaginable.
Yes.
You've been set free, and you know, despite your attitude here today, the only one who's suffered any consequences to this point has been you.
That's it. That's it. That's why I'm hoping for the people to be so outraged at it that they take it out at the ballot box. That's it. These prosecutors that are popping up with these wrongful convictions and egregious prosecutorial misconduct have to be voted out. That's on us, okay? As long as we keep them in, they're going to continue to serve us that type of justice. That's on us. So if you upset with what happened at me, then show up at the ballot box. That's it.
Now, is part of your foundation and instillment of that value as well, teaching children to vote, the power to vote, democracy, and how that works?
Yes, of course. I want to teach them about the criminal justice system, how to interact with police officers as well, so that we don't have these Trayvon Martins and the young man in Ferguson. We don't have that happening. So you have to know how to communicate with law enforcement, because you have to understand that law enforcement come there and in authority position. Okay, understand that first.
Right.
Okay, so to disarm the situation, you can't go and, you know, kind of get a little outrageous with him. You got to know how to deal with him. Let him have the floor. Let him tell you why he stopped you. Let him tell you what's going on. Cooperate. Don't say nothing other than I want an attorney, and then that's it. And then you cooperate. You be on your best behavior, and that's it. But going there trying to challenge and law enforcement is really an ego thing. And then next thing you know, somebody's hurt, and that lawman, he's getting off scot-free. We have to understand what the situation is, first of all, and that is that you have people with guns whose chests are stuck out. And when they pull you over in authoritarian role. Understand that. You know, let him tell you what's happening. Be courteous, be polite. If it goes any further, then just ask for an attorney. and that's it. But be courteous, polite the whole time. So it might save your life.
Yeah, I agree.
You know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let's go to the phone lines again. We have another call. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Yes, hi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Mr. Graves, what advice would you give the young criminal defense attorneys?
One thing advice I'll give criminal defense attorneys, really take time to get to know your client, okay? Because the information that you're not going to be able to find, he has it. But if you don't go down there and spend time with him and really build a rapport and get to know him, he's not going to trust you, and he's not going to turn over the information that you need to help him. So one of the most important things I would tell any attorney is really get to know your client. You know, don't just treat him like a number. Get to know him. He has family that love him and all of those things, and he want to trust you. But he can't if you don't at least act as though you're interested in who he is as a person. Get to know your client. It's just as simple as that. It'll take you a long way. And it'll save money because you don't have to spend it all trying to find out what it is that he won't tell you. Get to know your client.
Anthony, we have a question coming in on Twitter here. Person asks, how did you keep your spirits up after 2 execution dates?
Knowing that God loved me, knowing that God had my hand, knowing that whatever was going to happen, he was going to be in control the whole way. I gave it to God so that I could live. You know, I tell people that I discovered my God in hell. A lot of people discover him in church, but I was in hell when he came and got me.
Did you have religion prior to?
I don't have it now.
You don't?
No, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. I have a relationship with my God, and that's good enough for me. And the reason why I say that is because when I was down there, I seen many men practice many different religions, and I seen it divide all those men. So I was like, wait a minute, why do I want to be a part of something that's dividing all the men? You know, can I just believe in God? And I just made my mind up that I'm comfortable just believing in my God, you know, and I just respect how everybody else choose to follow. But I'm comfortable like this. I have a relationship with God. I'm not religious. You know.
It's powerful. I mean, that's some powerful stuff.
It's just my reality. That was my world. You know, that was just my world. I watch me, and I'm talking about literally come to blows because they're thinking their religion is the better religion. Over 100,000 different religions in the world. Everybody's religion think it's the right religion. So you can't do nothing but respect that. If you really believe in your own religion, then you know that you should show respect to other religions. Intolerance, and that doesn't happen.
And I think what we've seen tonight from you is, despite everything that's happened to you, I mean, obviously you want to see justice done in your case and justice done to the people who wronged you, but you're also very tolerant of what's going on.
Well, yeah, because to me it's a bigger picture in play. Okay, it's not about Sylvesters. It's not about the people that done wrong to me. It's about a criminal justice system that is failing us. And I'm in a position to give an insight. So,
do you think your case would have resulted in any kind of difference had the exact same crime and investigation taking place now as opposed to '94? Do you think through the passage of time, anything has changed for the better?
No, but if it was the same player, it'd been the same thing. This didn't happen to do nothing with just the system itself as much as those we entrusted in the system. Okay, so if the same players would have been involved, same result. You know.
Apparently, we've got a watch party going on down at Midnight Slice, and they've tweeted us a question for you. They want to know, did you ever think about your last meal, and were you ever scared?
No, I thought about eating my mother's cooking, you know, because it was never if I got out, it was when I got out. So, and another thing is, no, I was never scared because I just felt like you just couldn't threaten me with heaven, okay? Everybody wants to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to die. I said, well, you know, if you talking about killing me, then I go to heaven. How is that a threat? You can't threaten me with heaven, but until I do go there, I'm going to tell everything that I know about the injustice that is taking place in my life. And at the end, if you did put me in the pine box, then I go home. You know? Oh, well, we all born to die. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can put you on death row when you was already born to die. Don't fall for that. It's a label. That's it. Don't fall for it. You're not going to live forever. Okay? I wrote a poem, and I was talking about the judge. I was just saying, you know, that this judge had sentenced me to die like as though he would live forever. You know? And when I looked in his eyes, I thought I saw the devil. And then I just started thinking, you know, I wonder where that judge is today. You know what I'm saying? Have he taken his last breath? You know? Yeah. And my point is that you just can't say, you can't sentence no one to die as though you're going to live forever. We are all born to die, but in between living and dying, make your mark so that you can live forever. That's by doing good toward other people. That's it.
And you know what? I think that it's a perfect way to end this. Anthony, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and sharing your story. It's been powerful. I mean, for me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of the audience watching out there tonight, this has just been a very powerful story for me. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, man.
And sharing all of your experiences with us. Damon, thanks for...
Yeah, it was a very powerful episode, Anthony. I really appreciate you coming along and sharing your story. And I really like that last thing you just said, that you can't threaten me with heaven. And
no, you can't.
I've never heard that before, and I really like it. So
yeah,
thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
Really, thank you.
Absolutely. Damon, thanks for helping out with the show as always. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back next week. We're going to hopefully talk about the new policies in place at the DA's office and also the upcoming policies of the challenger in the DA's race and how those policies and the implementation of the current DA's policies versus that of her opponents will affect defendants currently in Harris County and those in the future who may be charged. So we look forward to having you again next week. Please join us on Facebook, HCCLA Reasonable Doubt. Follow us on Twitter at HCCLA_TV. And feel free to contact us anytime. Send us any topics you might be interested in or any guests that you might want to see us bring on the show. For now, good night, and we'll see you next week.